Most retirement plans don't depend on Social Security. At least that's what most people say. People call it a bonus, a nice to have, a cushion. Something not necessarily essential, and that belief, it feels reassuring. That is until you realize how many retirement numbers depend on Social Security to stay whole, to stay predictable, and to stay on time. Look, this video isn't about politics, it's not about blame, it's not about which political party is right. It's about what happens to retirement math when a system that most plans treat as stable begins to change in really hard to detect ways. Because when Social Security gets cut, it doesn't collapse. It just has to rebalance in your plan. If this way of looking at retirement is useful to you, please subscribe. And that way you won't miss the next assumption that we test. Most people say that, you know what, hey, I don't depend on Social Security, but their plan sure does. Ask retirees how important Social Security is to them, and the most common answer you'll hear is, well, we don't rely on it. But if you dig a little deeper and look at the structure of most plans, Social Security often covers their fixed expenses, reduces portfolio withdrawals, and it smooths any kind of income variability. Most people say Social Security is just a bonus, but their withdrawals treat it like a load-bearing wall. It may not be the foundation, but it definitely is the keystone of most plans. Shrink it, delay it, or weaken it, and the pressure shows up in other numbers. Cuts in Social Security don't arrive like emergencies. They arrive like minor adjustments. When people imagine Social Security cuts, they imagine something sudden. But that's not how systems change. Cuts in Social Security often mean slower growth, maybe a different indexing number, means testing, or just delaying access to collecting your Social Security benefits. The real lie is that cuts will announce themselves, and they don't. Most of the time, they just show up as slower growth, later access, or less favorable rules. By themselves, each one feels manageable, but each one changes the retirement math. See, stacked over years, they don't feel like a cut. They feel like an erosion of your benefits. The damage doesn't show up where people expect. A Social Security cut rarely causes panic. Instead, it changes timing. Now, money has to get pulled from portfolios sooner, from your safer assets quicker than you expected, and it gets pulled from future years in a way that you didn't anticipate. And your retirement numbers didn't anticipate that shift, so the pressure just has to get moved to somewhere else in your plan. And usually that somewhere else is time. You see, you don't lose money all at once. What you lose is runway. For all of us, small income gaps currently cause big downstream effects. When Social Security pays less than expected, withdrawals don't spike, they just advance. Money that you expected to stay invested longer gets touched much earlier. And that matters because early withdrawals, they compound. Markets don't care about your timing, and flexibility disappears really quietly. The number doesn't fail instantly. It ages faster than planned. Ironically, conservative plans can sometimes be more exposed. You see, people who took less market risk often lean more heavily on stable income. When that stable income weakens, your portfolios have to carry more of the burden. Your risk tolerance is tested late, and your adjustments feel much scarier. Aggressive plans, they can pivot earlier. Conservative plans have to pivot late or not be able to pivot at all. You see, the irony isn't political, it's structural. Adjustment assumes flexibility still exists. Most people believe, hey, you know what, I'm going to respond if needed, but by the time Social Security pressure shows up in your financial plan, you then have age, which limits your options. Health narrows the choices that you might have, and commitments are already locked up. So adjustments, well, they're not impossible, but they're very much limited. The retirement math in your financial plan rarely accounts for that limitation. This isn't about does Social Security survive? It's about how much certainty your plan quietly borrowed from Social Security always being there in the amount that you anticipated. You see, two things can be true. You can trust the system at the same time seeing and realizing your dependency on that system. See, most retirement math assumes the following: that income is predictable, that portfolios are incredibly flexible, and that time is neutral. A cut, even a mild one, flips that around. Based on that, suddenly income becomes uncertain, assets are pressured, and time becomes exposed. That's not fear, that's just recognition of possibilities you've got to face. So this is where most people ask the wrong question about Social Security. If Social Security were cut tomorrow, the real problem wouldn't be in the check. It would be, where does the difference in the expected check and the reality, where does the difference land in your financial plan? For some of us, it would be having to initiate withdrawals. For others, it's timing. And for others, it's the flexibility that they always assumed they would have. The takeaway isn't panic. It's this: any retirement number that doesn't show you where Social Security pressure gets absorbed, the math isn't finished yet in your financial plan. Look, you don't need to fix it today, but you should be able to point it out and identify it in your plan. If you can't, that's the signal to you, not the cut itself. So this video wasn't meant to create doubt. It was meant to show you how much you depend in your plan on Social Security. Because your monthly Social Security benefit, it isn't just income. It's timing, it's confidence, it's margin. And once that margin thins out, other assumptions start carrying the weight that they were never meant to carry. So in our next video, we're going to take a look at the assumptions that quietly take over when your income weakens. We're talking about healthcare and why its timing often collides with everything we just talked about.